Welcome back, everyone. This recording is a follow-up to yesterday's webinar, Leveraging AI Technology to Improve Workplace Safety. Our guests from Voxel, Brittany DeRaffalo and Kayvon Deldar, have very graciously agreed to come back online with us to answer a few of the remaining questions from yesterday's webinar, question and answer. Thank you, Brittany and Kayvon, for joining me today. Let's get right into it. Uh, a wide variety of different questions we got really kind of across some different topics. So I'll start out with kind of talking a little bit more about the software itself. So how often are your AI program elements updated? And does that update come with a cost? Is that something that clients can take advantage of kind of as you kind of improve the platform moving forward?
Sure, I can take that one. It's pretty quick. I think the benefit of Voxel generally is that we will continue to make updates to the software, but it's essentially included in the price. So like we don't sell per use case, or it's kind of like an all-in-one package. I would say that the software is updated at least every week or two. I mean, some of them might be small updates here and there. I would say at least once a month we're making some major change, whether it's a new use case, like a new kind of risk that the AI is detecting, a new product improvement. So we just launched Actions, which is like a cool way to have a workflow around videos that you want to share with your teammates that just launched this past month. So I would say we make small software updates all the time, but then like kind of at least once a month there's something major, and that's all. It all kind of gets bundled into the existing product. There's no upselling for these new features.
Amazing. No, that's great to hear. One other software question we had as well was, how do you guys ensure the AI data accuracy and that you avoid kind of like false alarms in terms of the data that it collects?
Sure. So everything that we presented on yesterday is, we like to say, at least 95% accurate. I mean, we've been in the market for about 4 years. Um, the the whole point about AI is it's constantly learning. So if it does happen to make a mistake, which is inevitable, I mean, it's not perfect. We get feedback from our customers, and the models continue to improve over time. So I would think of the use cases that we've already launched, we've observed enough data where we feel very confident for those use cases. But as we launch new ones, that's why we put them into beta at first. We launch it with just a few customers, make sure it's working. We take our time, and then we can kind of start to slowly expand it to the broader customer base. So similar to how human beings learn new things and we might make mistakes, it's the same for AI. And um, I mean, at a certain point, we feel very confident in the accuracy for the existing use cases that we have. So you're always going to have things to work through, even, I mean, with any AI solution, not just Voxel, but across the board. So that has to be something you're comfortable with. And I think it's all about finding the right team that's willing to work with you and make sure that the models will continue to improve.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really good call. And to your point, only gets better with time as those things learn. So again, you can only expect it to get better and better, and have additional use cases as well, which is really great. Um, okay, that wraps up kind of the software questions we had. I had a couple questions around more of like the workplace logistics, kind of use case aspects. One of the questions that got asked, can you utilize this technology on construction sites? Is that something that someone could explore?
So, also a good question. I feel like Brittany eventually, I want you to
It's all
answer,
right.
but
Yeah.
I'll just because I feel like they're more kind of customer focused on the sales side. So happy to take them. We are talking to a few construction companies. I would say there's a bit more nuance. I mean, we're definitely built for fixed cameras. So I know there was a question, I think, yesterday about drones. We today only work on fixed cameras, so not really mobile or moving cameras as it stands. I think for construction, you have maybe it's like a laydown area or a place where it's more of like a manufacturing environment within a construction site. Those could be good fits, but the job site itself can be pretty complex given the cameras are probably always moving. They're more mobile cameras. We are working on our capabilities there. That is something that like I mentioned, we are talking to construction companies, but I would say the majority of our customer base today is warehousing, manufacturing, and let's say like ports and terminals where they have like fixed security cameras. So not closing the door there, but there are some nuances with construction that we should keep in mind.
And I think, Kayvon, just to highlight there, more stagnant work environments. If you think about a construction work zone, it might not have a walkway today and it has a walkway 4 hours later. So some of those changes that occur is part of the reason why we've not yet been in some of those work environments. But again, like Kayvon made mention too, I think the future is moving quickly, and so we anticipate to be in those in the soon, quick future.
Yeah. So the word I was looking for was like fab shops, like fabrication operations
Yes.
within
Yeah.
construction would be a good fit because those are more, to Brittany's point, those are more like fixed operations.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's why it's such a good fit, your technology for manufacturing settings where they really do have fixed locations, fixed settings where you can really capture that information. That's great. Some of the other questions we got were more around kind of the ethics, privacy, confidentiality side of things. So, people were curious, is there clear guidelines for ethical use, how companies have to use these technologies, especially when it comes to, again, some of that kind of questions around surveillance and worker trust?
Definitely, Kayvon. If you're okay, I'll take this one.
Go for it.
Uh, I did, but the first bit is we're not lawyers, we're not counsel, so we'll make kind of the general recommendation from a high level. But first and foremost, partner with your internal legal teams. Really great starting point. They're a stakeholder in the process, so it's a great collaboration to ensure that you're aligned early on with those individuals. Um, British Columbia does have some of their own privacy acts. One of the benefits for Voxel and other AIs, in our case, is that we do not do facial recognition. So some of the requirements in British Columbia around the Privacy Act are specific to that facial recognition or tracking, and that's not purposefully not part of our software. Um, so I think that's a really helpful starting point. But I would say there's also the internal company perspective on what we feel, whether ethically or we're required to do. So some of those communications, inclusiveness from the very beginning, explaining how the cameras or the software is functioning, are all opportunities to be transparent and inclusive, but may not necessarily be a local requirement from a legislative perspective.
Yep, makes sense. It's a best practice in terms of implementation execution. And that actually fits really well into the next question, which is really about, when you're looking to implement this with these organizations, how do you get that buy-in with the workers? Like, what are kind of the best practices you guys are following to ensure, you can implement and sustain it effectively?
Definitely. I think, we hit a few of those best practices yesterday, which is focusing on process over people. Um, there's always, I'd say it's an Achilles heel to be able to blame the employee, but really looking more about have we set them up to fail safe? And if we take that responsibility and that approach, I think that will really help to reduce some of the potential feelings of contention. Um, the other thing I did when I was a customer was our safety committee actually walked the floor with Voxel as we were thinking about implementing because they were driving us to where the risk in their mind was. So they had an active say in which cameras we selected, what were we looking for, why were we here, and maybe we picked a different area than they suggested, but they got to hear why we wanted to pick it. So that collaboration and that again, being heard really starts to settle the emotions and the feelings and some of that concern. So I think those are two great ways to start. And then continued communication. What are the wins that you're achieving? So if I had a concern, I raised a specific camera, what did you find in that camera? What are you doing about it? And yay, there's a win. Well, show me what you've done, and make sure the whole plant sees that. It builds that culture and the positive work environment in itself.
Yeah, I love that, Brittany. And to your point, it then becomes a powerful tool for collaboration, for engagement with those frontline teams. So you got to lay the foundation to start, build the trust, and then really show, as you sustain it moving forward, that you're taking that action. No, that's really great. One other
One,
question. Oh, go
one of
ahead,
the one
Kayla.
of the last point for that one is just positive reinforcement. We have a lot of customers that, like I said, I believe I said this yesterday as well, but as you start to just look at more videos inevitably, like when you have the Voxel platform, you'll just start to like naturally look at more videos. You'll see a lot of good behaviors too. And I think that's also an opportunity to say, hey, we're seeing safe behaviors here. And it's not
Totally.
it's a balance between the two always. So like even when our team we highlight videos on behalf of our customers, sometimes we're highlighting both good and bad as well. So it's we're trying to take a balanced approach there.
No, and that makes perfect sense. That old school compliment sandwich, people are going to receive the, feedback better when you're calling out the things that they're doing well as well. So I think that's a really good way to, again, create that good culture, that collaboration, focus on the right things in terms of kind of where those opportunities are. Um, Great. One of the other questions we had too, kind of again, more around the privacy, the confidentiality, the security side was, because these tools are using the security cameras, is there any concerns or issues around cybersecurity, around intellectual property, any aspects of that?
Sure. I can take that one. It's definitely more of an IT question. We have a sales engineering team that has deep expertise in network, cameras, cybersecurity. We're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. So I'm no technical expert, but I've been told that we have very good data security and cybersecurity on our side, and I think that's a testament to the types of customers that we work with in terms of like Fortune 500 companies and working with their IT teams. So while it's a little bit outside of Brittany and myself's realm, we do work with your IT team to make sure that, let's say, you have certain concerns around to your point, intellectual property, um, things that I mean, we essentially encrypt the video footage and make sure that it's still the customer's video data, and we're doing our best to ensure that that remains the same.
Amazing. Great. Love that. Some of the other questions that we got were more around, once you implement this, the executional aspect, how do we use this to be successful, to drive risk management, to mitigate the risks that are present in our workplace? So in practice, kind of in working with a lot of your different clients, how do organizations use this technology to prioritize and spend time in the right areas, intervening in the right areas in their workplaces?
I love this question. This is where my job gets really fun. So from a risk management perspective, I mean, taking a step back, kind of going back to the very beginning, there's severity and there's our frequency. So to some extent, it's understanding what we're prioritizing. We're taking a little bit of that loaded approach where we're actually doing more of a formal risk ranking to figure out how we want to prioritize. Generally speaking, at least as a new customer, the obvious starting point is usually where we see the most concentration of risk, the frequency. So we'll see the exact number of unsafe acts, and we know this is the highest out of all of the cases, and starting there. Then you have the ability to kind of continue to draw down as we looked at when Kayvon did the product, showed a little bit more on the product side, drilling down from the specific act, such as no stop at intersection, being able to then say in which camera view, right? Where is it occurring? And then from where is it occurring, that heat map, which is showing exactly pinpoint in that spot, you've now been able to quantify where your frequency is happening most. In other cases, sometimes you might have, for example, PPE being at the highest. Well, then we're using a little bit of deduction here. And while PPE may not be your highest risk, is that a good starting point to start to build culture to then get to a more challenging problem? And then in
Right.
some cases, we say, well, that's great. It is our biggest problem, but I want to hit the highest risk, not my highest severity, not my highest frequency. So there's not a one size fits all approach, but I think that's where the partnership from whoever you're working with becomes really important. That guidance of being able to hear what you prioritize, helping you surmise that data, and then really coming up with a collaborative approach on how you want to start to reduce that risk and quantify how you've reduced the risk.
It's
Yeah, I
great.
love that.
I'll know that we have a couple of former customers on our voxel team, like Brittany, and it's such a resource to have people that have used to use the product working with our customers because they've truly had they've been in those shoes before. So
Totally.
it's a great experience, not only from like their safety knowledge on its own, but they also were in the shoes of a voxel user, and I guess they liked it so much they jumped ship. So
Yeah, no, that's a good testament to your product for sure. No, I love that, Brittany, and I think kind of taking that next step too beyond obviously the initial identification, prioritization. Once these organizations go out there to actually implement controls, Can they leverage the platform to also see kind of the impact that they've had when they've implemented those changes in the workplace?
Definitely. I love that question as well. We have something called markers. And so what you're able to do is really track when you've implemented something. So for example, added walkway, added stop sign. And from the date that you add that in there is going to track the percent reduction from that time forward. So rather than waiting weeks, months, all, so on and so forth to see if that change has really stuck, you can see within, 24 hours and quicker if you're getting change, and it's absolutely amazing. And I like to always give the example around toolbox talks. You give a toolbox talk and you're wondering the effectivity of it. You say, okay, well, great, I had a reduction for 2 days. And what happens after, right? Human behavior,
Yep.
it creeps back up. So now you can start to figure out if I do a toolbox talk, I'm going to get this much out of it. If I do an administrative control, I tend to see blank percent reduction. And when I do an engineering control or elimination and substitution, I get blank. And then from a company and return on investment, capital investment conversations, it really starts to make that business pitch a little bit more tangible.
Yeah, I love that, Brittany. And to your point, being able to prove out the efficacy, the outcomes that you're getting from those different types of controls is really important because when you take those higher order controls, when you implement engineering controls, they have more of that systematic impact. And so being able to show that in the data as well is really powerful when you're having those conversations with your business leaders. You're showing the ROI, you're showing the benefit. That's really powerful. So really love that. Some of the other questions we got more around kind of the operational side of things. You guys had talked about obviously the ability to get notifications from the system. People had questions around that. What triggers an alarm or a notification in terms of the need or the flagging of a risk or the need for a corrective action? How do customers kind of take advantage of that information in terms of taking action on it?
Sure, I can take this one. So notifications are very customer specific. We have a lot of customers that have no notifications turned on and they kind of just log in once or twice a day. Because as you can imagine, if you get a notification, a customer can decide, okay, for this particular use case, we want to get notified immediately. That's great. But then if it's happening more frequently, you don't want to get 50 notifications either. So
Correct.
it's a balance between I would say our typical customer is just logging in on a more on a certain cadence. Brittany can probably chime in here on when she was using it on how often she was logging in. I would say that for notifications, we tend to see, let's say, the suspended load use case, or it might be a certain no pedestrian zone, or it could be working at heights. Something that's a more severe risk, that tends to be how we get notified or how we can notify customers, and that can happen through email or SMS. So those are the two kind of ways in which they can get notified.
Amazing. That's great. And sounds like there's flexibility based on what the organization is really looking for, which at the end of the day is going to be the thing that sets people up for success.
Yeah,
Uh,
the whole platform is flexible. And I was talking about this yesterday. If you, let's say you have certain cameras in your facility, let's say you have 10 different cameras you want to deploy it on, every camera you might be looking for different things. So it's up to the customer to, I like to call the, the, the AI use case, I like to call it the menu of options because
right.
essentially the customer is just picking off the menu of what they want to look
Right.
for per camera.
No, I love that. That's excellent. I guess taking that to the next level as well, in terms of obviously there's the notifications you get about the events that are happening. Can customers also get summary reports that are automated where they're kind of seeing consistently what's coming, maybe week over week kind of thing?
Definitely. So we have daily summary emails that can summarize the data. I used to use those from a corporate perspective, just kind of as a high level. But where I really found the rubber met the road for my team was at that supervisor level. So you're about to walk into a pre-shift meeting and you're wondering what to talk about. You're not having to necessarily sit in the platform. You can get a quick summary. Here's what yesterday showed. Here's what you might want to talk about, and allowing that actionable data. And I think that, again, the more that we can take it, the goal is not to watch thousands and thousands of video. The goal is to have actionable data that allows you to, implement countermeasures, reduce risk, and partner with the team to figure out what the solutions are.
I love that. Yeah. And I think again, all about that effectiveness in terms of the specific use case that you guys are after. Another question we had, again, more of the operational side. Can this technology be used in like product prototyping phases? Potentially even like if I'm looking at, implementing a new work area, workstation to kind of understand what the introduced risks might be?
Definitely. The only I'd say quote unquote delay or it's not even a challenge, but would be adding the camera. So if it's a
Right.
new camera, which is all of a 10-minute activity like we talked about. So it's not overly challenging, but adding that new camera and then you're able to set up the use cases how you want. So if you're trying to watch for 5S, making sure we can put no obstructions in an area, no pedestrian zones, those different use cases. And then what you could do is see those heat maps on that specific camera to then be able to decide what to do next. Did we need to change it? We didn't, maybe we thought this, everyone knew this area wasn't supposed to have stuff in it, but we didn't demarcate it, so it was unclear. So allowing that to tie through to actionable changes, yes.
Love that. One of the other questions we had too was kind of thinking about implementing this in practice where, operations teams, health and safety groups are kind of on the floor doing work themselves to look at some of these areas as well. Is it possible to kind of sync, handwritten, collected job inspection, job evaluation notes, field level risk assessments that are done with the information from the Voxel platform to both highlight, maybe some of the feedback from workers as well in those scenarios?
Sure. So Kayvon, I'll have my answer, and then maybe you have another perspective as well. Actually, risk assessments are so there's a risk assessment built into the platform, but actually one of the things we're actively working on right now is how to make that again level that up and continue to build the product more. So from a safety perspective, in my previous experiences, that similar type adjustment, whether it be from a risk assessment or some of the feedback received. So I think that will continue to develop. But right now, it's something that really, I think, still in I wouldn't say the development, but in the further growth of figuring out how do we do that more in the platform. And not only do it in the platform, this is the really cool part. How does it become predictive where it can continue to help you and take some of the burden off your safety teams, but really start to learn from how you've done risk assessments previously and how we want to grow and develop that from the AI perspective.
Amazing.
Kayvon,
Uh,
anything you'd add there?
No, I mean, I think to Brittany's point, we're always developing how we bring in new pieces of data and customer information. Like we ultimately want Voxel to be a naturally embedded part of a company's safety program. So as much as we can do as we learn more about the customer and their desires to bring that information in and make Voxel the way that they can not only manage their risk but get their own internal feedback. I mean, that's what we would want as well. I think we view ourselves we're obviously a technology company, but we view ourselves as a safety company, an operations company, and trying to tailor our product around them, not the other way around, where they have to get used to our AI product and make that a part of their workflow. It's kind of this, it's a two-way street.
Totally makes perfect sense to me. Amazing. Well, that was the kind of can or the questions that we gotten back from everyone in the audience. I guess the last thing, I know I asked you this both yesterday, but before we wrap up, is there any kind of final takeaways that you want to make sure to leave people with, just in terms of again figuring out if this is the right fit for them?
I'll have my quick answer. I think it's just being curious. I think there's no obligation I think there's a lot of innovation in this space. I think as you look to the opportunities for improvement, like we're going to be at Make It Safe next month. So like feel free to come by, have a conversation. We're always happy to just share what we've seen. I think it's hard to like I don't think AI is going to solve all your problems, but I think it can be a really, really good tool to take safety to the next level when the organization is ready to utilize it. So it's all about its own process and journey, but I would just say stay curious and you'd be surprised at what technology can do now for a number of things. So
Definitely. Awesome. I would say that similar to what Kayvon said and stay curious, you don't need to be at a certain maturity level. The neat thing about AI is that you can have maybe a company with newer in their safety culture, safety journey that can find really good use of it. And you can have a really mature safety culture and still make great use of it. So it's with you in every part of your life cycle. Um, and I think it's a plug and play in the sense of it can fit wherever you're at. And if you're ready for the next step, that's where we can partner with you to help you get there and continue to move that culture forward. And if you're at the very beginning of your journey, we're there to support you too. So you don't need to be a one size fits all and feel like we're not ready yet. Your time's now, and we're ready to help you get there.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, Brittany and Kayvon, for taking the time to join today to answer these remaining questions. For the folks listening, if you have any more questions about this topic or others, please email manufacturing@safetyalliancebc.ca. That's manufacturing@safetyalliancebc.ca. That can connect you with our team members. We can answer those questions for you and pass along your contact details to Voxel as well. We're always here to help answer your questions and support you along that safety journey. Have a great day.